proves we can't ever really know what's going on. What's going on?
Appearances can be deceptive.
Hey, Tom, I was just speculating about a hypothesis. I know I don't know nothing.
Uncertainty. That is appropriate for matters in this world.
There, we're in a tight spot.
Hello, welcome to Framework. I'm Al Schwartz. With me, as always, John Bernard.
Hello, it's John. Hey.
We are doing a Coen-Oscopy again today. We are up to Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? How would you describe this genre-wise?
I mean, it's a musical. It's a comedy. It's an adventure.
It's a Preston Sturges riff.
Certainly is. It's a hobo saga.
Odyssey.
A hobo odyssey is a good one to put. Yeah. Okay. That's good.
The movie does self-identify as an adaptation of Homer's The Odyssey. Do you put a lot of stock in that? It seems like you didn't lead with that. So,
well, I mean, no, I don't. I think it's insane that they call this an adaptation of The Odyssey. It is clearly riffing on individual sequences from The Odyssey, and kind of a lot of it's wink, wink. Like The Odyssey, there's a lot of that, which is that's just sort of comedy. That's like a genre unto itself at this point. Is just sort of referencing, some sort of massive tome of
sirens
literature.
and cyclopses, I suppose.
Now, and you can go a little deeper, and it gets a little less convincing. The more parallels you draw, the baptism with the lady, the people going into the water. Well, that's the lotus eaters. I'm like, okay.
Sure.
And people get turned into animals. It's instead of pigs, it's frogs, and not really. And I'm just, okay. And you see the sheriff that represents the devil actually represents Poseidon. And Stephen Root is Homer. And George Babyface Nelson is, of course, Hermes, the god of thieves. And I'm just like, okay, this is not this. None of this tracks for me anymore. this is
the
just
one I
weird
think
now.
I gave out the biggest no prize for how the Odyssey has one of its episodes that's prompted by his men stealing cattle from somebody who is, protected by the gods or whatever. And that's their big crime, is stealing livestock. And George Nelson shoots up the cows. And that is what ultimately causes him to be, I guess, executed at the end. They're yelling cow killer and dragging the cow behind the sort of execution procession is such a great touch there. Which, okay, what does that mean? Nothing much. Who cares?
That's the thing. This is a joke. The Odyssey the whole Odyssey thing is for laughs and giggles obviously you can see it in the film, but still
they turn. Yes, you can see. I mean, the Cyclops stuff is very obvious, and
the sirens,
obviously changed the names of certain people. I don't know if when they started this, because they claim that they didn't start this as an Odyssey riff, but just realized they were doing an episodic story about a guy trying to get home, and that is the Odyssey, basic template. And so you presume if that's true, then after that's when they changed the lead character's name to Ulysses Everett McGill. It's probably just Everett to start with. Make up Everett. Papio Daniels' given name is Menelaus.
This is the first time I caught that. That was very good.
And his wife is Penny for, Odysseus' wife is Penelope, and she's having to fend off this gang of suitors while he's gone the entire time. And she's got a suitor that he's trying to fight. Even that doesn't line up that well, because she is not trying to fight off the suitors in this case.
No, they're deep into it. Yeah.
But okay, look, that's the Odyssey stuff. I think it's stuff we don't care that much about. The musical aspect of this is probably where the movie's most successful. What makes it most appealing?
I mean, yes. I didn't really think of this as a musical, I got to admit, until this most recent viewing. But man, it's definitely a musical. It's a jukebox musical, it's all existing songs, I'm pretty sure. I was surprised how much of it is diegetic, like played in world, almost all of it. And that's sort of what informs it for me. These characters kind of live in a world where there's no social media. Obviously, there's not even radio though. No, there's radio. There's no TVs.
No.
So everyone is the entire like entertainment and culture of the time is music, essentially. And everyone has instruments. Everyone knows how to perform music. Everyone loves it. They get into it. It is the sort of the social currency of the time. It's a movie very much about music.
Yeah, and it goes out over the radio or on the back of traveling flatbed trucks, where they have people just sort of driving around the countryside playing music, kind of, I don't know, at agricultural workers in the fields. It feels like sometimes, but
Yep.
But that stuff's great, and this is a musical of sorts. When you say musical, my mind immediately goes to like stage musical, and it
Of course
does not have choreographed numbers like that. That
has a
people
few.
break out
Has a
into.
few.
Well, I guess the Klan does.
The Klan has a big one. Yeah.
Yeah. But like you said, diegetic. It's not these interludes where we break into song and elaborate dance where people are singing into the camera, almost like at the audience, and then stepping back to actually interacting with each other, like in human speech. It is people stop and do performances in this movie, including the Klan, even in their big, drum line, whatever thing they're doing. But we're all over the place. Do we do any table setting, I suppose, for like the plot? Do we care about the plot of this movie?
Well, it's kind of like the Odyssey, you see. It's about three convicts from a chain gang in the 1930s, in the American South during the Great Depression, Mississippi, I believe, escape and go on a quest to find buried treasure. Although, of course, it turns out that it's really about getting back home to Ulysses Everett McGill's wife, Penny. It's George Clooney and Holly Hunter. And they get on a series of adventures along the way and meet a bunch of colorful characters and play a lot of music. And it's a comedy as well. So,
yes, it's a very funny movie. I love this movie. I should maybe bury that lead too. I absolutely love this movie. And like I said, the main convict is played by George Clooney. He's the ringleader. He's our main character, our Ulysses, which is the Greek name or the Americanization, not Americanization, I guess.
It's the Roman version.
Yeah, the Roman version. That's what it is. Mm-hmm. The one that we still have kicking around today. And he is this is a revelation performance for George Clooney for me.
Yes. I think it might be his best performance, actually. I was thinking. It's tough. He's been good.
I think actually his best performance is probably the Ocean's movies. Although I can see why people wouldn't go right there because the conceit there is that it feels like he's just playing himself.
Well, that's crucial. I think being a gigantic movie star is kind of his best ability. He is a good actor. But the reason he is, who he is because he's so incredibly cool and effortlessly so on screen, on camera. And Oceans is probably, that's a movie based on that, essentially. I think this movie is too.
Yeah, it's a franchise based on that.
His best acting performance might be Michael Clayton. I don't know. But when it comes to Clooney, I think this is my favorite. I think this is. He's wonderful in this. He is everything you want a movie star to be, and also kind of do a 1930s movie star as well. He's got the Clark Gable mustache. He's got the sort of fast talk and old timey cadences. He's doing like Harold Hill stuff, like from The Music Man, through a lot of this. It's he reminds me kind of like an old timey Simpsons character in a lot of ways, but he's also just stunningly handsome guy and just holds the camera incredibly well. Yeah, I adore this performance.
Yeah, I think one thing that helps it too, this movie is set in the Deep South in the 30s. And he is doing, like you said, this 1930s thing. It's a big acting performance. You can see the effort on screen and all. But one thing he's not asked to do is do a Southern accent, which everybody else is doing a big, broad Southern accent. And that, I think, the other thing he's not asked to do is actually sing his own songs later on, but we could get to that later on.
Mhm.
I think that if Clooney was trying to do a big, broad Southern accent on top of all this, it might be too much. And I think that's actually great. It works for the character that he is somebody who fancies himself an educated person surrounded by hayseeds and rubes. And so he would, even if he grew up in Mississippi, have suppressed his Southern accent and be affecting this more scholarly tone that he's clearly trying to maintain. Although he's very easily ruffled throughout the movie, which is another great source of humor.
Well, he has a hint of it. Just it's nothing near like what John Turturro's doing.
Exactly.
It feels deliberate and I mean, probably to some extent they just didn't want it to be, a weird, distracting George Clooney accent performance, because he's the center of the film, and there's no shortage of that in the movie. I mean, you got Tim Blake Nelson just right next to him.
I mean, it's a plenty weird performance without it. That's my point.
Well, that's true. I mean, maybe it's just they knew not to add that one last thing. To hold the balance of this as the protagonist of the film. He's got so much goofiness to him, though, that to leaven all that as well. The hair stuff, the pomade fetish and the waking up to my hair all the time. It's so funny. Him kind of presenting it as a peacock, I guess.
Yeah,
even
very much so.
Covered in dirt and wearing overalls, he's still kind of just like.
Well, he's an intellectual peacock.
Yeah,
he wants to show off his intellect at every turn, and so one of the things we mentioned in the past is that the Coen brothers have this special talent for writing erudite idiots.
Oh, well, none better, right?
Yeah, this is the kind of the ultimate apotheosis of that. I mean, I guess you could quibble whether he's really an idiot or not. He certainly does buffoonish things frequently, but he is still probably the smartest character in this movie. Well, no, Pappy O'Daniel is, I suppose.
Sure. Okay. Yeah. But no, they're on different tiers of existence.
Sure.
Yeah, he's clearly like the brains of the operation. And it all kind of works out because, well, he's a fast-talking flim-flam man, and he can kind of figure out what people need to hear to get what he wants as often as not. And also, they live in a cartoon world where there's not real consequences most of the time. So there's that.
Being a fast-talking flim-flam man doesn't avail him that much. Being a musical virtuoso, sort of by accident, that he doesn't even realize, is what ultimately saves the day.
Well, music is the most important thing. Is it intentional, do you think, by the way, that he is named Everett McGill? The same name as Twin Peaks character actor and sort of 80s heavy Everett McGill.
You wonder how that could get by them, but also, like, if it was intentional, then to what end? It's impossible to say.
It's a good name.
It is. I mean, it's impossible to say with so much stuff about the Coens. We also circle this a lot, but in the Coen-Oscopy, they claim that they base this on the Odyssey without either of them ever actually having read the Odyssey, and that they got like a comic book version of it after they had written the script to familiarize themselves a little more. But again, that's one of those things that they say, and then you go, do we think that's actually true? Maybe. Maybe not.
I mean, I read somewhere that the only person on set apparently who had read the Odyssey was Tim Blake Nelson because he had a humanities degree. And they were like proud of that. They were talking about that in junkets. It could obviously be fake, of course, but I mean, I do believe they didn't read it. There's not, like I said, there's really only signifiers of the Odyssey here. Hell, yeah. I mean, they've overlaid Christian religion and mythology on top of the Odyssey.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, but there's a lot of lifts, it leads off with the quote that leads off the Odyssey. And then their first encounter is with the handcart man, who's clearly supposed to be Tiresias, the blind seer from the Odyssey,
of course,
in some fashion. And we also close the movie on that guy without ever seeing him before, which, what this movie does really, really well and what I'm coming to think is just the key to writing good scripts generally is plans and payoffs, and even just opening the movie and closing the movie with that guy, even though he does nothing and whatever. It just ties together what is otherwise this extremely episodic story, and it could feel as disjointed and jumbled as the actual Odyssey does if you try and read it with modern eyes, because it was, it's not a novel somebody sat down and wrote with a character arc in mind or anything. It was just a collection of stories riffing on this folk hero. But just the play and payoff, even like of little jokes, the hairnet stuff. It carries from one scene to the next, and we are all over the map in this movie. But the little thing, tracking who thinks who's a toad at any given point is and of course the nemesis figure also has a sort of cohesifying effect on the movie as a whole. There's a through line there you can cut to that helps bring it all together and make it feel like something instead of just a weird period sketch comedy.
Well, I mean, I do think that the Odyssey as a structure does tie this film together. It really ties the film together. It is a familiar structure to us, even if we've never read the Odyssey. We know that there's going to be points that they hit along the way, and so you can be like, Cyclops, as you're watching it, and that's it is highfalutin. It is allusions to literature and antiquity, and therefore kind of gives this, what could feel like a very stupid movie in a lot of ways. A bunch of silly things happening to dumb people. There's almost a Jim Carrey version of this movie, but it feels, very intentional and a little highfalutin itself, just with all the literary allusions.
The movie's bearing is so lowfalutin, like I said, that, when you're in a given scene, you don't. Yeah, you're right. I mean, a comedy with these types of literary pretensions could be absolutely insufferable very easily. And this movie never is, partly because those literary pretensions might entirely be a piss take. And partly just because the performances are so goofy. Like we talked about, like how big and broad Clooney goes. This was kind of a revelation in that regard, that he done Just Till Dawn or whatever to show that he could lead a movie and be sort of a movie star.
He's quite good in that. He's quite good in that film too. Well,
yeah, he is. It's so weird that he's the last person I would have expected to enter the Coen brothers stable. And the way they use him is also not what I would expect, even looking back from now. That it turns out that they end up using him several times, but they only use him as the leading man in their biggest, broadest, goofiest comedies.
He calls they call it the Idiot trilogy. Would be, I guess Hail Caesar would fall out of that, but that would be Oh Brother, Intolerable Cruelty, and Burn After Reading.
Yeah,
and I don't know. I don't know.
Hail Caesar, he is the idiot. He's not the protagonist of that one, but he is an idiot leading man. That's who he's playing.
Yeah. I don't know that the name Idiot really works for any of those characters, except maybe Burn After Reading. Not fully, but
they're making him. They're reveling and making him act very silly.
Absolutely.
Everett McGill can't be an idiot when John Goodman has shown his true colors and has already beaten Tim Blake Nelson with a branch, and he just says, "What's the deal, Big Dan?" Well, he's still eating his corn.
Understand.
Like,
he walks the line incredibly well. Mm-hmm. Like he is as stupid as the scene needs him to be, and it doesn't like break the character in any way. That's the truth, because they're kind of cartoon logic folks, and there is a low basement for how stupid people get in this too. There's some dumb guys in this movie, and that's sort of the joy of it in a way. Just uneducated hayseeds.
Yes, well, and that's what Turturro and Tim Blake Nelson are playing. Mm-hmm. And Turturro, I don't have a ton to say about Turturro's performance in this one. He's doing quite good, but it's not his most interesting work. And he's the least funny of the trio.
Well, it seems like an aggressive performance. He's sort of very aggro. He's not necessarily written that way, but he is sort of the dilemma scene to scene. You know, he's the guy who introduces conflict as often as not. And he's very animalistic in this. A lot of grunting and kind of like swelling himself up, and he's low to the ground and yeah, hostile.
Yeah, he's kind of like sticking his jaw out. Like,
yeah, he's likable because he's John Turturro, so it works just fine. But I am curious what they were going for. It's the one performance I think that doesn't totally land in this, and not in like a problematic way. But you know, I don't know. Everyone else is on such a tier that I'm kind of just like, I don't know about this one.
I agree. I mean, this is, I think Pete on the page is supposed to be a Southern kind of almost meathead, and they cast one of like the most New York, most Jewish actors around to do that. It's a weird miscasting, but you can get away with that with John Turturro because he's just such a great actor, and because
it's sort of a racial chameleon as well.
Yeah, that's true. You can do Italian, you can do Jewish, you can do whatever. I mean, several different things. I mean, he was Carmine Falcone, for God's sake.
Right.
But and apparently you can do, you know, Southern hick passably well in this context, not as just, you know, fully inhabited as Tim Blake Nelson, who's having a ball playing an absolute moron in this.
Oh man, this is an excellent performance. This is another one that I think is just extraordinary. He builds his career on this performance. It's like an announcement, just like, hey, here's a great new character actor, and this remains his best role, I think. You know, despite having worked high profile stuff for, you know, the following 25 years, it's just like the great Tim Blake Nelson performance.
Yeah, and the story. I mean, apparently, it's such a weird, like, Coenized version of the sort of, you know, Hollywood myth of, oh, some casting agent found David Boreanaz walking his dogs on their block and said, "You've got to be in the pictures." And the story supposedly is that Tim Blake Nelson was just their neighbor, or like Joel Coen's neighbor. That just they found a humanities professor next door instead of a male model walking dogs in Los Angeles, and they're like, "You've got an incredible face. You're very fun to be around. Just let's put you on screen." And then he became this character actor that we're all like, you know, been waiting to see return to the Marvel Cinematic Universe for 15 years now.
Of course. He went on to have like a big theater career as well. He's done some incredible stuff in his career that you wouldn't expect. You know, he wrote a play about the authorship of Shakespeare. He wrote a play about the Holocaust, about the Sonderkommando and the Jewish collaborators within Auschwitz, called The Gray Zone. That is just this harrowing, like it's an unbelievable career this guy has had in the wake of this. And yeah, he's also kind of known as this impeccable, just Southern bumpkin buffoon. This type that he brings back regularly in films.
Yeah, well, and okay, I guess this is a thing that we talked about with Raising Arizona too. Is could you take this movie as insulting to the South? Because
probably, but no one did. No one did, and I think that's because it's you know, I think they can take the right kind of joke. I think, and I think the culture had moved on, and I think it is also kind of a heightened reality as well, and. I don't know. They all come off pretty okay, I guess, except for the Klan.
I think it was the music mostly that salvaged it.
Maybe,
or that avoided any sort of backlash there. I mean, the soundtrack for this, we should say, is phenomenal. Was also a phenomenon. It won Grammys and Oscars, I believe, and
it's pretty unreal.
It's like the best-selling album of that year or something. Like that's something that you'd have, like, you don't see something like that since like the 50s, when like the My Fair Lady cast recording would be the #1 album of the year or something. But this was a real phenomenon.
The Man of Constant Sorrow was like number one on the charts and shit. Like it was like huge radio play. Like, you know, it inspired a bluegrass revival. It was a massive cultural moment. It's crazy. It's kind of hard to like. It was top of the charts for months. It was absurd. The movie did okay, but the album was a juggernaut. Kind of hard to find anything that kind of compares to that.
And on top of that, it's genuinely great. The music in this is wonderful. It's perfect for every scene. And I think that's sort of why, like, for as much of this movie is built around, like, these Southern yokels, they sure talk funny. It's just so beautiful as a movie to look at and to listen to that you can't possibly come out of it thinking that it holds the South in contempt.
Yeah. There's joy throughout it because of the music, you know, gorgeous songs. Like the Siren song is fantastic. And all the political rally songs are really, they're all catchy and fun, you know, as political rally songs would be. The song, the Man of Constant Sorrow, just the image of Clooney singing into the box in the radio is, with the two of them in behind him, is sort of, well, that's the iconic image of the movie, really. Yeah. But it's also just, you know, this pure musical joyous moment that is it's crazy. I mean, the lyrics of that song are not joyful, but it's basically that thing you do here. You know, it's a song that has to work, has to make sense, that it would capture the attention and admiration of the entire community or the state.
The whole state.
Yeah. And it totally works in that sense. I mean, it's something that should win Best Song, except it wasn't an original song, so it couldn't. But one of the best uses of a song, I don't know, in movies, maybe? It's up there. It's really important to the film working.
Yeah, I don't have a ready list of like top 3 or anything, but it is, like you said, like that thing you do, it's so tied into the plot that this has to be a believably incredible earworm. That the audience has to love the song in order for the plot of the movie to work. And that's a lot of pressure to put on. And
I'll tell you one thing. It doesn't work in karaoke. I tried it once, karaoke. It was a crash and burn. It was very bad. Harder to sing than it sounds like. And
that's what George Clooney found out.
Yeah.
He was supposedly going to record it himself. His aunt is Rosemary Clooney, who's like a famous singer.
Yep.
So I think there was some idea of, it runs in your family. We'll give it a try. And, he'd like to tell stories on the junkets about, I trained Trey for a couple of weeks. And then we got in there and did like one take. And there was like, we're just going to bring in the professionals now. But that's what's so great about it is actually they make that work for the cartoony tone of the movie, one, but also just the blatant artificiality of how clearly he is not singing that. And when the guys pop into the side of the frame on either side of him to harmonize, that Turturro's clearly not doing it either. Like that fits both with the cartooniness and with the idea that they're being sort of possessed by the muse here. It is something otherworldly and magical that is happening that is beyond them.
There's definitely a lot of magical realism running through this, and I like framing this in that way. It was more for me. It was like, well, of course they're going to have amazing musical talent because the moment demands it.
Yeah,
but it's much better if you phrase it as, it is part of the greater plan. Man, this is the thing they know how to do. Huh? This is finding a mythic structure to place their stories on. Somehow just makes it feel truer and work as a story better.
Well, and the way that story ties up, it is about his relationship to the divine and to the magical realism elements. It's not just like a tonal decision. The movie, it is about, it's a tonal decision for the movie, but they also chose a protagonist who rejects that reality explicitly. And I
was wondering, does this count as an arc? It must. Right?
Well, it's almost like what we talked about with Hudsucker Proxy, where the character like goes through an entire, like all the beats of an arc, and then at the end kind of just shrugs their shoulders and goes, whatever, and goes back to how they were. And this works better than that. Him, the final thing with the flooding of the valley and him coming to Jesus, and then popping up out of the flood and immediately reversing course. Said, "Oh no, that they were always gonna flood this valley today. That was a scheduled, rational thing."
Yes. Well, any man in a situation will cast about. Yeah, right.
But even after that, the last thing, after he gives his final speech dismissing all that and ushering in the veritable age of reason, everybody's going to be hooked up to a grid and put on a paying basis. The last thing he says is embracing the age of reason, but then he looks over and sees the cow on top of the cotton house, which the handcart man at the beginning prophesied that he would, and squints at it a little bit and has that moment, an extra moment of doubt there, which actually,
it's the beneath the sink. It's the inner workings of the universe, a glimpse of the miraculous.
And that's what they're so good about. Like, we talk about nihilism and their relationship to all. The way that I always come back to is they're the better than anybody else at having it both ways, and having scripts that are these, authored, intelligently designed things, but also about characters grappling with at least the possibility of meaningless, if not the reality of meaninglessness. And this, in such a goofy context, the way that
Arizona was the one I came to mind.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, or No Country has the same ending as Raising Arizona. But it's the dream, but then you wake up from the dream. And so, what is it? Are we leaving you with the hopeful part of the dream, or with the crushing realization when you wake up that it was false? And Raising Arizona and No Country, despite having the same ending, have different sort of angles on that. But this one, is yet another example of, well, I think for the audience, we are to believe that there is, grander designs at work here, that there is gods or gods, that the blind seer kind of establishes that when he gives us a true prophecy at the beginning. But does the character accept that? Or is he still just as blind and guilty of, sharp dealing and pride as ever?
Rambunctiousness and misdemeanory. Yeah.
The language in this movie is so great. We don't want to just turn into a thing where we just recite every line of this movie and marvel at how wonderful the language is. But also, I worry that we are now half an hour and given very short shrift to how funny that and how wonderful the dialogue is in this.
Ornate, immaculate. It's lots of fun to listen to. It's very, very. I don't know. A lot of it is just phrased in such a way that it is like it's. I mean, Clooney is highfalutin, as we've talked about, but most of the other characters. I mean, there's a few others like him, Big Dan Teague, but for the most part, they are using sort of low class vernacular, and even within that, though, there is incredible observation and wit and cleverness in the things they are seeing and noticing and explaining. There is a worldview in everything. I mean, Tim Blake Nelson does this probably better than anyone, but it's Pete's cousin, the hog farmer that they at the beginning.
Wallop.
They're all these guys are just some of the best like day players and and extras that I can remember in a movie. What a treasure trove of just comic gigantic fat men running through this film. I mean, sorry, but there's some great ones here.
Yeah. I mean, that's the trifecta of Goodman, Durning, and Stephen Root is wonderful.
Right, but we got more. We got plenty of extras. Yeah, I love Pappy O'Daniel's. What was it? Is it
his entourage?
Yeah,
Junior.
Yeah. We got to get us some of that reform, Dad. How come we don't get some reform?
How are we going to run reform when we're the damn incumbent? Yeah, it's just brilliant stuff. We could do half an hour on Pappy O'Daniel. This is one of my favorite just comedic performances, supporting performances. It's a wonderful character. Again, I don't want to just recite every line, but as an example of the highly ornate, just incredible dialogue. I love when the Ray McKinnon character accuses him of lacking moral fiber. And Pappy O'Daniel invented moral fiber. While I was displaying rectitude and high-mindedness when that egghead you work for was still messing his drawers.
Yeah, it's the way this character is explained and presents. Like it actually took a few viewings to totally get all the things they're laying down with Pappy O'Daniel. You know, like that he is a flower magnate. You know, and that led to his governorship. All the things he's doing. I mean, well, the first time you watch this movie, you're kind of just like, you really can't tell the difference between Pappy O'Daniel and Homer Stokes until the end, I guess. You're just like, is one good? Is one bad? I don't know. They're politicians, you know.
For the first 2/3 of it, it seems like Homer Stokes is the good one and Pappy O'Daniel's the bad one.
Yeah, I guess, right.
He's the reform candidate.
Yeah.
Pappy O'Daniel is sort of openly corrupt. You know, he's, but it turns out he's more open to racial inclusion, and also to pardoning our guys.
Well, I think he sees what way the energy is moving. You know, he's a guy who's able to move with the moment. You know, because he's a great politician, presumably. He sees what's going on. Homer Stokes is turned against the music, and you can't do that. You cannot turn against the Soggy Bottom Boys right as they're about to do. Man of Constant Sorrow. Come on, man.
Well, he interrupts Man of Constant Sorrow mid-song, which is a major party foul. What's great about Pappy in that moment where he storms the stage, I mean, other than Durning's goofy dance, is
what a dance! Yeah,
all time belongs in the Library of Congress. God, the goofy dancing in this is incredible. I don't know if that or I love when they're doing
same scene. Ooh.
Yeah. Totoro doing his weird shoulder like jerk thing where he's like looking side to side in his fake beard just kills me. And that's without whatever the weird Ministry of Silly Walk thing that Clooney's doing at the end too. God, these actors are having a fucking ball.
It does look like the most fun movie to make ever. It really does. Yeah.
And it's so much fun to watch. But just in terms of like the political astuteness of Pappy O'Daniel. I love when he storms the stage there after the crowd has turned on Homer Stokes and literally run him out on a rail. That he's like whipping up the crowd against him, saying, seems like the only person in this state who's not a music lover is my opponent in the upcoming Homer Stokes. And the crowd starts booing and hissing at Homer Stokes, at his rival. And the thing that strikes me as like what a skilled politician Pappy is he doesn't just like, encourage that, the 2-minute hate against his rival. He quickly like tones down, no, there's no counting for taste. He does like, no, we want to keep the good vibes going. That's the whole premise here. Not even at the expense of my opponent do I want this to turn into a bad vibes moment. And he turns that entirely to his advantage because, I think he is a very good politician.
Yeah, I love the sort of side look he gives to the Soggy Bottom Boys there when he's like, I'm sure all the lifetime of crimes and misdemeanor is done for, and he's sort of like, ain't it, boys? And they're like, you get what I'm saying? You want to be part of this or not? And they're like, yeah, we're part of that. You can pardon us? That's fine. He plays the room incredibly well there, and it's great. It's just like, hey, Charles Durning, come in. Save the end of the film here. Resolve this plot. And he's like, I can do that. Don't worry. And yeah, it is a shame. This is the only real. I mean, yeah, he's in Hudsucker, but this is his big Coen role. He could have been in a lot of these. He could have played the Big Lebowski. He could have done a ton of these.
Yeah, and at least 3 days a week, I'm convinced that he did play the Big Lebowski. Just kind of waffles it out of my mind, but I remember that wasn't actually him. But yeah, I mean, Pappy, my favorite work of his, one of my favorite Coen Brothers characters, which would put him high in the running for best character worldwide. But he's not the only one giving great supporting character actor work in this. We mentioned Stephen Root in passing. My God, the Southern accent he is putting on here. I mean, I think he is somebody who's from Tennessee or, somewhere in Appalachia. But he is going so big. Just the way he said, like, oh, yeah. Like, instead of yeah. It's like, yeah. It's incredible. And I love just his response. The guy he's talking to, who says, we got to find those Soggy Bottom boys and sign them up to a big fat contract. Hell, if we don't, the competition will. And you hear Stephen Root just kind of thoughtfully rocking, going, oh, yeah, I got to beat that there competition. I can't connect that line to some wider Coen Brothers thing or anything, but it just sticks in my brain so much about just, you could hear the capital C in the competition. It's just this concept of, I don't know, just, I guess, capitalist striving.
Yeah. An adversary. Yeah. A nemesis, if you will.
There you go. Yeah. He's got Stephen Root's got his own nemesis in this.
Yeah, the competition. Welcome to the ensemble, Stephen Root. You're going to be in more of these going forward. It's an obvious match of talent and creative filmmakers. This is a natural guy for their stable, and yeah, he's in some of the best ones going forward. I'm actually don't even remember how many. I know he's in Best Buster Scrubs and No Country, and probably a few more is my guess.
Yeah, not, but he's got to be in Hail Caesar somewhere, right? There's like 850 people in that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I mean, he's a perfect guy to throw in for one or two scenes too. So I'm sure he's popping up in, I don't know, Burn After Reading or something, and I just don't recall it right off the top of my head.
Yeah,
I'm excited to watch a lot of these in the back half that I haven't seen as much, and see how many times Stephen Root appears in them.
But I think you hit the nail on the head of like the great thing about Stephen Root. He is somebody that you can put in for a single line in passing and it'll make that scene better. Or you can make him like a co-lead who in Barry and have him steal the show and become like the protagonist of that show that's named after the other guy that is his antagonist.
He's so good in Barry. It's sort of like a revelation of a performance to see how good and how much you can use Stephen Root and how much he can shoulder the burden of carrying a show. And yeah,
well, shoulder the burden because they blow out his lats so incredibly in the last season. That last season is just like, it's just Bill Hader like stunting on like, what else can we get Stephen Root to do? Like I just want to show off what this guy can do. It's incredible.
It's fantastic. I've always been saying he should have played the Colonel Tom Parker in the Elvis film, and he would have got an Oscar nomination for it rather than Tom Hanks. I think that would have fixed that movie, honestly.
I don't even know much about Colonel Tom Parker, but yes, he can play anybody whose character whose name is Colonel Tom Parker should be played by Stephen Root. That seems self-evident.
It's like the perfect role for him. Anyway,
yeah,
he's great. More of him to come. Wonderful in this. Let's see. Is it Goodman time? No, let's do Michael Badalucca first. George
Michael Badalucca. Okay, yes, our other big fat guy. As George Babyface Nelson, a real historical figure who I don't think ever came to Mississippi and had been dead for 2 years at this point. Just show they haven't shaken all the Fargo out of their system.
Mm-hmm, yeah. Is this does this character place this in sort of the hated 1930s, Al, with his Tommy gun leaning out the side of a big stupid car?
Yes, but wonderfully so. This is
because it's a pitch and shooting cows.
Yes, that's my beef with the 1930s is not that you cannot put a movie there. It's that you cannot do a movie about how people are great at their jobs there because everybody sucked at their jobs.
There's not a lot of hyper competence in Oh Brother Where
They were drinking whiskey for breakfast. Yeah, exactly. I mean, except for Pappy O'Daniel, perhaps. He's the only one who's like really knows what he's doing. It feels like. Even Stephen Root's character doesn't feel like he knows what he's got entirely.
No. He's literally
you could do a cartoon about how people are silly and dumb in the 30s. I'm fine.
In fact, it's the way it should be.
Yeah, it's almost magic. It's so magical that it's miraculous in this movie that these guys made the first like good popular music ever in the 1930s.
Right. I mean, I guess that is another thing that you don't really think of as being a 1930s thing, but yeah. Proliferation of radio and popular music really is kind of just starting. First time you can buy a record is around now.
Yeah, we'd see that lady trying to buy a record in the montage, which if you wanted to do like a Cinnamon Sins thing, it kind of shreds the entire timeline of this movie.
Oh, the timeline
is a mess.
Yeah.
They establish very clearly that they have 4 days before the valley will be flooded at the end of the movie, and then they proceed to show them around 6 different nighttime campfires before they get to there. And also this record that they pressed seems to have spread across the entire state in one day. And the guy it could not be more than 2 days later is saying, well, we just got a new shipment in yesterday, but we can't put it on the shelves. It's like, what do you mean? You got a new
feels
shipment?
like about a month, honestly, the movie takes place over. But, they're also just traveling around the one state. They couldn't get that far, I guess, on foot maybe. But yeah.
They burned through 5 cars.
Well, this is why it's the Odyssey, I guess. It's just sort of an impossible journey.
Yeah. These are not critiques. I don't give the slightest shit.
Cartoon movie.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a wonderful movie. I want more campfires. I want 8 more episodes. I just love to look at this movie and I love to listen to this movie. And it's hard to think, like, what else can I ask for from a movie?
Yeah.
I guess, you could make, if you want to ask anything about this movie, its representation stats are not great. It's not a great movie for women characters. There are some racial politics that don't really ping me as offensive, but if somebody wanted to make the case that they were, I would have to just kind of shrug and say, okay, I guess so.
Well, there's a bit of an elaborate blackface sequence that probably isn't worth the squeeze. I don't think it's going to piss anyone off, but it's also just like, I don't know how much you're gaining from this exactly. Probably could have just not done it, and that would have been okay.
It's all just to get to the line of Homer Stokes being able to say, the color guard's colored.
Yeah, pretty much.
Who made them the color guard? And is that juice worth a squeeze? 20 years later, they might decide no. Who knows?
Well, but again, I don't think anyone cared. I never heard anyone complain about that. Right. And, it's just sort of something that pings your 2024 senses and been like, I probably wouldn't have done that now, which is not even an interesting form of criticism. But, no,
but that's the thing. It is interesting, or it's interesting to me, just blackface stuff. I basically wish we had a scheduling conflict with our guest who maybe could. Mm-hmm. We had our friend who could have spoken as a black man on this and maybe told me something about it. But it just the way that in the current era blackface is treated is interesting to me in that it seems like from my Midwestern perspective, where I didn't grow up with that being a thing, really that we didn't have the Halloween parties where you see pictures of in the South, where just you have people wearing elaborate blackface costumes or anything like that. But it seems to me like it was identified as here's a thing that we definitely don't do anymore. And was that more because blackface is so offensive, or because it's just so easily identifiable as a thing to just not do? But does pulling the episode of Community where Ken Jeong is in blackface as a dark elf, does that really ping the offensive nature of blackface? I don't know. I guess I'm not the person to say about that. Or is it just so identifiable as, let's just not do that ever again under any circumstances?
Well, it's tied to a legacy of minstrel shows. It's, there's a lot of historical reasons why it specifically sucks. But yeah, I don't know. I think that's why you lose the Ken Jeong as a drow thing, even though I'd never heard anyone complain about that either. But it's just sort of like there's a lot of shit here that you don't want people thinking about while you watch a 23-minute sitcom about Dungeons and Dragons. It's
that context seems so removed from minstrelry that it doesn't even like ping on me. I mean, the joke there is that everybody in the scene is really uncomfortable with it, but none of them could quite put their finger on why.
Yeah, and it's funny. That's one of the best episodes of Community, sadly. But that it's just that in this. It's just sort of like your radar goes up. You're like, are they doing that? Oh, well, okay. Are they doing it in an okay way? I guess so. It's
by way of attacking the Klan, so I guess maybe that buys it a little bit of wiggle room. Though I think just the fact that it was 2001 buys most of it.
The Klan is looking like buffoons in that scene, so yes, you can get away with. I'm sure. It's fine. Yeah, again, no one's ever complained about this, as far as I know. But yeah, it is a movie in which you can see John Turturro and George Clooney in blackface. So that's that.
There is that. You're never going to see that again.
I guess the idea is that they were just trying to blend into the night. Is why they applied it.
Yeah, I don't know what
You see them applying it as they're having an unrelated conversation. You're just like, look what they're doing.
Yeah. Well, you kind of get that why when George Clooney and Tim Blake Nelson put it on to break into the prison house to bust out Pete.
Right.
And once they're out on the street, on the road in the dark, you're not really sure why Turturro is then putting it on too.
Yeah, because it's night out. They don't want to be seen in the night because they're escaping jail. I guess.
That's a lot more careful than they are in a lot of the other daytime sequences. But anyway, again, this is not to CinemaSins. This, who cares?
Right.
Look, if you care about the legacy of minstrelry, sure, I'll give you that. But who cares about the diegetic justification dramatically for that's not the issue.
The colored guard's colored. Yes, that's what we're.
The issue is that they do it at all, not that it was sufficiently motivated in the diegesis of their plan to escape. Anyway, all right. Who else, we have any other supporting characters?
Oh, certainly. There's Tommy Johnson. Might as well talk about him now. We're talking about.
Yeah. Well, this is a take I've seen bandied about, that sort of the racial thesis of this movie is that these convicts, in order to, like, the trials they have to go through to earn their reward at the end is to experience like life as a black person in the South.
I don't like that. I think
I don't buy that
no.
as really what's going on anyway. And
no.
And if it was, then it's not very well rendered.
No, that's a different film entirely. That's interesting, but no. That's a much more serious film than this. Frankly, it's Black Like Me. But no, this character. Mostly exists to do the devil, Crossroads devil stuff. Tommy Johnson does, and
it's not. I think to give that theory a little more buttressing, it's not necessarily that they're mistaken for other than that color guard is colored moment. It's not that they're going around, people are thinking that they're black. It's just that some of the beats they go through, they create rock music, popular music, basically, and then have that appropriated by the white powers that be to further their political agenda or whatever. They're not going to. I guess they are going to get rich off it. In some form, right?
They are white too. Yeah, they are also. They are appropriating Tommy Johnson's devil-granted talent, presumably. The only time they're actually able to be like a great band is when they have Tommy with them.
Yes, and they're impersonating being black to Stephen Root's because Stephen Root's character is blind.
That's true. That's both scenes. Both scenes where they're performing. They're in disguise, I guess, rather. Yeah.
Yeah. Wait, are they supposed to still be kind of in blackface in the final performance?
I don't know. They don't mention it, but they still have makeup on.
But they also have fake beards on.
They also have fake beards.
Where the disguise is coming from. And I don't know. They're so recognizable as these white actors to me that was supposed to
There's that too. It's muddy and unclear. So that's another reason why I don't love this reading. If I engage with that, I'm going to be like, well, no, because of this. Well, they could have made it that clear. There's an easy way to have made that clear. And so I reject it out of hand. How about that?
Yeah, I don't really think it was the intention, and even if it was, I don't like it very much, so I'd probably just reject that anyway, and like the movie functions without it, I think.
Mm-hmm. They're poor. There's class stuff for sure.
Sure.
In the 1930s, everyone's kind of poor, or a lot of people.
They got this depression on.
Yeah, we got this depression. Yeah, so I think that is an unnecessary component when you're looking at the whole, because we're dealing with an impoverished nation at this point. This is Mississippi, one of the poorest states, and so of course, everyone here is scrambling. Everyone here is living in shacks,
well, except for the politicians. Absolutely. And Vernon T. Waldrop seems to be doing all right. He's allowed in the Woolworths. That's another supporting performance that I love.
Raymond McKinnon showing up.
Raymond McKinnon, yeah. We of course know and love him as the epileptic reverend on Deadwood, which is a very kind of serious, tragic role. And this is very, very goofy.
Yeah, this is close to his federal agent and Sons of Anarchy.
Closer. I just want to give a special shout out to the physicality of both him and Clooney when they're having their 1930s dumbass boxing match.
Just straight up the fisticuffs. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. The Notre Dame mascot style fist pointing back towards yourselves. And Clooney, I love Clooney's stance is somehow even dumber than that, which is he's holding his fists up with his like fingers out and off to both sides. He's providing no coverage to his face and body by putting them out, and also not giving himself a great angle to get it. It's wonderfully stupid, and just the way that they bug out their eyes cracks me up. In that,
there's a lot of eyes bugging out in this movie.
Yeah, but it's like both of them are convinced that the key to boxing is not blinking.
I think that they are trying to stare each other down, or at least Clooney is, because that's all he's got. He doesn't have any fighting ability, apparently. But yeah, I mean, Raymond McKinnon is definitely bug-eyeing too. They're intimidating each other. They're peacocking. So Raymond McKinnon, and Holly Hunter, and the Warvey gals, all introduced in this segment of the film.
Yeah, 2/3 of the way through.
This is an excellent bit of expositional storytelling, I think. Like, all the information that we have to come to understand in that sequence is really, really well conveyed, I think. Just the fact, the multitude of names going around. She is his ex-wife who dropped the name. The kids, his gaggle of daughters, also dropped the name. They are going by her maiden name, Warvey, and they have a popular sort of girls singing. What do you even call this? A little girls chorus that performs for Homer Stokes, known as the Warvey Gals. She's about to marry Raymond McKinnon. Change the name again because he's bona fide. He's a suitor.
Yes.
All this,
and he's also the campaign manager for Homer Stokes.
Yes. This is all getting across in like 5 minutes. And we're meeting half a dozen characters in this time. Most of them small children. And it's clear enough right away. And I think having Holly Hunter and Raymond McKinnon certainly helps with that. But, I think it's just also incredible economy of storytelling. Or maybe I'm wrong and I only figured this out after watching the movie 3 or 4 times.
But you
Hard to say now.
You didn't need to. I mean, much like with the Big Lebowski, like you don't need to know all the ins and outs the first time through to enjoy it.
Yeah.
You're like I'm getting the important information out of that, even if my main takeaway the first time through is just loving the way McKinnon pronounces fiancé.
And I guess this is another way that the Odyssey helps. It's like, oh, it's his ex-wife. Oh, suitors. That's if you're any familiarity with the Odyssey, you're like, okay, well, that's the dramatic movement of this story. Then, is he's getting his wife back from the suitors, and that's another thing that just does for you, I guess. Yeah, it's my favorite line. I'm the goddamn paterfamilias.
Yes.
I just throw that one out sometimes. Now that I have a kid, I do it.
I mean, it was not my primary motivation for procreating, but one of them was to be able to claim the title paterfamilias, just because it's a fun word. It's got good mouthfeel. But the thing that is so great about that sequence is, in addition to all the expository legwork that you mentioned, it's just like a masterclass in comedy writing, in the way that like there's 3 different instances of like rule of 3 things being threaded throughout. That was weird alliteration of all this threaded throughout things. But there's, they're repeating the stuff about him being a suitor. They're repeating stuff about him, Clooney not being bona fide. And they're repeating the story about how the mom told them about how he got hit by a train because they didn't want to. She didn't want to tell the girls that he got sent to prison for practicing law without a license. That's another just perfect character beat that we get late in this movie of, well, of course that's what he was in jail for, not robbing an armored car like he told the other guys. But just like the way every time they repeat those lines, and it's coming at him from a different angle because there's a different girl on each side of his face or whatever, and it just gets funnier and culminating in the bit of Holly Hunter telling him off by saying like, well, he's bona fide, he's got prospects. The best thing you ever did for this family was get hit by that train. which of course he didn't do.
It's great to bring her back. It's similar to Raising Arizona kind of character, but one who's going to have a lot less dimensionality and a lot less screen time. So it's just great to get a ringer, I guess would be how I'd say. Rat-a-tat-tat, quick dialogue between multiple characters, immediate relationship with a movie star, like all the stuff that you kind of need somebody of Holly Hunter's caliber to pull off for this. Well, I mean, I don't want to say underwritten because it is well deployed within the context of the film, but for being the only woman in it, it's probably underwritten.
You don't want to say underwritten, which is why you said incredible narrative economy. That is Pappy O'Daniel level spin on it. But yes, it's but not untrue for all that. I would say that is the key, and like you said, you need somebody of Holly Hunter's stature. Screen stature. She's like 4'11", so I don't know stature. But somebody who can come in and do so much with such a short amount of time. Because you're right. I don't know that trying to bring her in earlier in the story, make her a more rounded dimensional character. I don't know if dragging this movie out to over 2 hours to get to that is worth the squeeze either.
No, I mean that would make it more like The Odyssey, and this is just another way where that kind of reveals itself to not necessarily be the thing, and more
in the bad ways, though.
The
Odyssey is not a perfect object that I think we should be emulating in cinematic form.
But that's what it would be. It'd be about her pining for. We don't need scenes of her pining for Ulysses Everett McGill along with her son. Well, more suitors pile up. That doesn't serve the needs of "Oh Brother, Where Art Thou" at all. So that's just. It's just sort of signposts instead, and it's better for it in this case, and in pretty much every case. This movie did not need more Odyssey. So that's all good. We got more. We got so much more to talk about here. We're getting over an hour now. I guess we've kind of just been going through the cast and talking about their sequences. So I guess let's keep doing that, and then we can swing back around to some of the other things. So we
touched on Goodman, but not giving him his proper due.
No, let's do it. Okay, John Goodman as Big Dan Teague, the Cyclops. Now this is a lot of fun. I wouldn't put this in the top tier of his Coen work. This is clearly kind of just like a level boss. Come in and do some fun stuff. And it's kind of channeling Charlie Meadows / Madman Mudd from Barton Fink, which is sort of the grander version of this character, I guess you'd say.
The top tier of Goodman's Coen work is just Walter Sobchak, which is like the top tiers of film acting ever. That's an all-time film performance. That's not a fair metric, I don't think. This is obviously two scenes.
Well, this isn't that, though. I mean, this is come in and do us a solid, work for 5 days or whatever. And we're just going to get you in, a seersucker suit with suspenders. And won't that be fun?
Yes, and a white eye patch.
Yeah. It's a great, you just want to see this guy moving around in this world. So, obviously what movie isn't improved by John Goodman being in it? First off.
Speechifying at Clooney's Everett McGill character, who prides himself on his speechifying capabilities, and he is so immediately taken by somebody who speechifies at his level that he is completely willing.
I believe I am possessed by the gift of gab. Yeah,
to the point where he's just so willing to indulge this guy, to the point where he's actively beating and robbing them, and Clooney has still not raised an objection.
Yeah, I mean. It's pretty much his role, right? He just mugs them. There's nothing else to it. He's just a thief. Probably not even a salesman. Just a guy who beats the shit out of people and takes their stuff. And he's also in the Klan.
Yes,
that's Big Dan Teague.
I mean, I would say there's a little bit of Hans Gruber here. I think he's an exceptional thief. He's a talented that the way he's introduced is just such great sort of low-key wonderful filmmaking. Is that Clooney is after the classic sort of gay panic gag of to Blake Nelson shouting in the restaurant, or he's saying that Pete deserved to get turned into a toad because he was fixing to fornicate with the sirens, and then Delmar yells, "Well, me and you was fixing to fornicate," just as the waitress walks up. And so Clooney is flashing his wad of cash around to sort of like smooth things over. And Big Dan, his ears, we are introduced by his ears perking up at the sound of him riffling through his wad of cash across the dining room. And then, turns into the frame to see his eye patch and okay, this is a predator who heard the sound of money, can smell it on him, and also immediately identifies exactly how to manipulate Clooney and get him somewhere isolated to then just brute force it. And, he's doing some speechifying out there too. It's good stuff. Even though he prefers a conversational hiatus during gustation.
Yes. I think we see him as the Cyclops, and this is probably this and the Sirens are probably the biggest, oh, I'm familiar with the Odyssey, I know what this is kind of moments in the script. So just when he's got one eye, as soon as we see that, I think his role in the story becomes very clear right away, just because, we know why you would put that guy here, someone to fight. And as such, it doesn't take long before he is just beating the shit out of him. And that's again his role in the thing. I guess he recognizes them at the Klan rally. Honestly, that sequence cheats a whole little bit, but he doesn't actually know who they are. They might well be in the Klan for all he knows.
I mean, I guess yeah. Well, I mean, does he hear them? It's weird because they're marching and they're whispering to Tommy, who's being frog marched to a noose, and the people holding Tommy's arms don't appear to hear them having a conversation about how they're there to rescue him, but Big Dan does. Again, would you want any other way? Do you not want the reveal of him turning around with a hood with only one eye hole cut in it?
Yeah, you're right. That's when the ecstatic truth is better than the logical one. Yeah. I think Go Brother Art, though, always goes for the ecstatic truth. So, yes, perfect. What a pretentious thing to say.
No, but I mean, it's Everett McGill would fully be on board with that. And the way you said it. But yeah, you're right. That's not the case in No Country for Old Men. You don't get to go for the ecstatic there. But in this environment, this magical realism environment, you do.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. I mean, well, that's the thing. The Klan scene is a bit of a mess in a lot of ways, but it's a wonderful scene. It's just such a good sequence. Yeah. It's so exciting and just sort of it's huge all of a sudden. They're doing a musical number. It's the last thing you expect to see, and it's and you also get to be like, whoa, evil. It's essentially Nazis showing up at this point in the film.
The last thing I expect to see there is the insert shot when the flaming cross is falling on Big Dan of the horse turning its head and having a horse Klan hood on, which is
it's funny too. I love that.
You love a good. Obviously, I know you love a good animal reaction shot in a comedy, but when it's from an especially racist horse, that's not a very. We're used to the dog version.
Good stuff. We in all this we kind of missed Homer Stokes. We're getting into the Klan sequence here. He's great too. Never seen this guy. He's apparently worked a lot, but man, he's terrific in this.
He's very good in this.
He's nailing that Coen brother cadence and the scenes and all the speeches and the sort of heightened Southern patois that everyone is enjoying so much in this. He's got some wonderful bits. The thing with the way you can see his campaign and how it's run with the sweeping the broom sweeping out corruption, and he's Homer Stokes' friend to the little man, so he's got a dwarf that helps him out. It's all very fun.
He's got. I mean, it's sort of a hat on a hat there. He's got. Maybe one too many conceits going on.
I love that the scene of Pappy O'Daniel's team talking about how good it is, and it's like, oh, maybe we ought to get us a little guy too. And it's like, we're gonna look like Johnny Come Latelys.
Don't matter how small.
No matter how stumpy.
The challenge is just the challenge is just to find someone shorter. That is little guy. The reveal of the little guy too, opening the reveal of Homer Stokes wrapping up his hood as the Grand Wizard is one thing.
Yeah.
Quickly followed by then pan down between his legs, and his little guy is down there with his hood on.
Amazing.
And then we get the horse. It's a wonderful series of reveals.
Yeah, I mean, did they never actually specifically said that Big Dan was the Grand Cyclops of the clan, right? That seems like
No.
Well, I mean, goes without saying, I suppose.
You don't have to say it all.
Yeah, we get it. Yeah.
But I also I like the way Big Dan is dispatched here, because they do the fake out of they're carrying, as the color guard, carrying a big Confederate flag that's on a sharp, stick, and as they're trying to flee, he hurls it the flag up into the air, and it's going towards Big Dan, and it's like, oh, it's perfectly set up to blind the Cyclops, because that's how they escape in the Odyssey, and that's how you would deal with a Cyclops. I mean, in anything, you're including a Cyclops in, basically. And then it has Big Dan catch it right in front of his face, and there's that moment of, oh no, that's an uh-oh thing. And then cuts rapidly to they've still have the bolt cutters from freeing Pete, and they cut down the burning cross, and the burning cross falls on him. And it's a small little switcheroo, but switcheroos are important in drama and comedy. They give things texture.
Yeah, it's one of many great sequences. Okay, so look, we got a lot. There's so much more in this film. Let's start wrapping this up, though. We're well over an hour at this point, and we got
and we haven't talked about the actual devil.
No, we haven't talked about the nemesis figure. Let's do him. Yeah, they just brought this idea back. It's sort of like it's similar to the way they used the lone biker, the Apocalypse, in Raising Arizona. It's much less of a one of the table legs of the entire film than it is in that one. It's sort of just flavor text, but pretty effective.
And again, I think it's really important for giving this a through line.
Yeah,
because there's the through line of they're searching for the treasure or whatever, but there's not a lot of threat to that, because if they're still free as convicts, like, their lot has improved considerably from where we opened with, even if they don't get what they're looking for. And like I said, just the episodic nature of this, it helps to have a spine to return to.
Yeah, I mean, he's a guy chasing him. Mm-hmm. And he definitely seems extra legal. And if we're paying attention to Tommy Johnson, it's he's got black eyes and a big old dog. We're just like, yeah, okay, I guess that's sort of the devil,
Well, yeah,
he kind of makes it
at his side, and something about he has empty eyes or flames in his eyes, and we see repeatedly in his reflective sunglasses the flames reflected. Yeah, I mean, just wonderful.
Yeah,
cinematically, Roger Deakins, he's good at this stuff.
He won the Oscar for this, I believe. This is his. This was I think his first big win with the Coens. Is it right? Or did he get it for Fargo too? Doesn't matter right now. It's it's a good trope. I don't know. I don't know that this necessarily contributes to the spine in the same way. I like the overlay of Christian folklore onto the Odyssey, and this is sort of the most fun version of it, is the Crossroads Devil, and his role in this story. I like that it becomes explicit at the end. The law is a human institution. Mm-hmm. Fun. But it also kind of places things in a biblical context right before the flood comes in, which is also, sort of a purifying moment. It's
you want O Brother to be less mythological, like that?
No,
I'm not sure.
Not at all. No, I love that it's also doing Christian stuff, and specifically Southern folklore Christian stuff. I think I don't know, the sweep of the amount of stuff going on in this with regards to mythology is well, frankly, it shouldn't work all of it together, but it does. It is complementary rather than the opposite of complimentary.
Yeah, that's why I'm surprised to hear you denigrating Sheriff Cooley's role in this film.
No, he's good. He's really good. I just think it's kind of just it's there for flavor rather than
But this is the most flavorful movie ever made. It's all flavor, baby.
That's true.
It's true. Flavor Town. That's our. I mean, I okay. Well,
I don't hold him in the esteem I hold Leonard Smalls. That's
sure. I mean, yes. It's there's Sugar and there's Smalls, and then the other nemesis are on a lower tier. I I buy that. I do think he's important to the movie because I don't know, like, if you do, yes, you could remove him and do most of the same stuff, but then what's the end of this movie? It's just they get pardoned and walk out and.
I mean, if they all just join in they join in the George Babyface Nelson execution parade, and that's the end of the film. That'd be okay. I'm glad that it goes on, but
it would be okay. But I think that the mythological ending gives it some stronger themes with the, the Coen brothers themes about doubt and reason versus faith and all that.
Well, that's the thing we were talking about with McGill. Yeah, like the his sort of like foxhole conversion there at the end is sort of the thing that gives the movie. I guess it's through line. It's emotional through line, and this is not like an emotional film per se, in the way that some of these are. You know, we talk about how overwhelmingly strong the narrative spine of Raising Arizona is, and how emotionally involved you get in those characters. They're not fucking around with that here, which I think is a good idea. I think that this doesn't really have room for that, and the marriage when the kids sort of remains a bit of a joke, throughout.
Yeah,
I think that's appropriate for this, and given all the other stuff it's taking on, the music and such. I don't want.
I think it's less. I think less. I mean, it's partly necessary for an emotional through line, but more for a philosophical one.
Okay, yeah.
It gives that the movie a little bit of heft. Not heft. This is a very light movie. It's very, like I said, one of the easiest movies to watch you'll ever encounter. But I think it is almost so light that it could just drift away into nothingness, the way that perhaps Lady Killers or Intolerable Cruelty will, or Drive Away Dolls later on.
Oh, it's too immaculate. It's far too designed.
I think because it has this philosophical anchor to it. That's it's light, but it's just heavy enough to keep it grounded into something that it feels like you watched a movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's almost like the way that like they use darkness and scary stuff in a Disney cartoon. It gives the whole thing sort of a heft and an importance that sort of, in spite of itself, just sort of elevates this as an emotional experience. Even if you're not involved in the characters per se, you're kind of just drawn into the world and sort of the cultural forces that are being presented to you, whether it's myth or music or just politics even. It's all kind of in the stew here, and the light touch and the goofiness sort of belies that it's all real. It's all meant, at least. Real is not the word, but it's all significant. It all has a weight to it.
It ties the room together.
Yeah, there we go. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. There was something else you said. Now I've lost it a bit.
Sorry, we can all over the board here.
No, it was about Cooley specifically, but
he's cool. He's great. Daniel von Bargen.
Yes,
great bad guy actor.
Yeah, I mean, you dressed it as a Disney villain. You're like, yes, I could see this villain as an animated villain. I mean, he's got some Judge Doom in him, I guess.
He does, actually, yeah.
And he could be the, sort of off-screen hunter from Bambi, almost.
Well, if you were to, I mean, this film actually looks like a cartoon often. Yes. I mean, the character design, I mean, you can kind of like easily imagine a Disney version of every character. Maybe the sheriff more than most, but... I don't know, the core trio, they feel like an animated trio, like something that you would see on the Hanna-Barbera group, the Hair Bears, or what have you.
Huey, Dewey, and Louie. Yeah.
Yeah. They are they do have the Alvin, Simon, Theodore dynamic, actually.
There it is. In terms of looking like a cartoon, we've gone all this way without talking about the sort of, I guess, revolutionary digital color correction.
Right, this movie. Of course. It's a revolutionary piece of cinema in that way.
Which is a thing that in everything I've ever listened to or read about this movie, everybody talks about it. And I still don't quite know what it means, except that this movie looks incredible. And it has a very particular color tone to it.
There's a very good special feature on the DVD about it.
But everybody always talks about how it had never been done before. I'm like, didn't The Matrix come out 2 years earlier? And it's got this
Okay.
Like the scenes within the Matrix have this sort of like green color correction to them.
Well, specifically, this is digital color correction. It had all been done with the
Matrix
three
wasn't
colors.
digital?
No, well, not the color correction, apparently.
Okay.
There was a specific way of doing it. Red, blue, green color waves being altered, and twisted, and handled in, and found in different variants, and putting it all through a computer, and then putting that back on film is what they did for this movie, which is sort of the revolutionary thing. Probably why Deakins won, and that meant you could kind of just do anything. And they show you that what the shots looked like before and after on the DVD special feature, which I do really recommend looking at. It's on YouTube, and it shows you because when they shot this film in Mississippi in the summer, it was very green. They say it looks like Ireland, and they show it to you, and it's like, yeah, this looks nothing like the film.
They color
corrected to the
sepia
Dust
tone.
Bowl, and it, the baptism scene, this big sweeping sequence, by the pond with just huge banyan trees, and it is this gorgeous sort of brown in the final version. It doesn't look anything like that. It looks like the Florida swamp where they shot it. It's a massive change to the tone of the film, and it puts it squarely in this sort of 1930s Dust Bowl Depression era, and heightens the unreality in a way that really, really complements the tone of the film, the cartoon mythology of Oh Brother.
Well, it seems like draining all the green out of the natural world and replacing it with more browns and yellows would make things more ugly, but it is so beautiful to look at.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's a gorgeous film. An absolute. I would love to get a 4K of this one. I think this is one of the best looking films they've ever made, for sure. And I'm kind of waiting for a really good home video release on it.
It's just shocking to me that this was so revolutionary and it holds up so well to this day, because for every Jurassic Park that revolutionizes things in a way that looks incredible and looks incredible 30 years later, there's the Hobbit movie, that did the high frame rate thing first and looked god awful. Or maybe I'm not the median moviegoer on this, but Avatar, did this revolutionary 3D stuff. Looks kind of crappy to my eyes. And it's like, yeah, you could be revolutionary and do a thing first, but it's rare that you do it first and do it best. And this, for as revolutionary as this apparently is, really, really fucking works.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Another way this is a great film. Another kind of important thing that this movie did. I mean, this is sort of the sort of thing that would have been figured out shortly after if they hadn't been the first. They just happened to be the first, kind of, like the founder of Facebook kind of thing. But all the same, it has that place in color correction history, and it results in an incredible looking film. Okay. So look, this is another one that we could kind of go on and on about. We didn't talk about Preston Sturges. We didn't talk about Hobo Adventures, which I had a whole thing on Hobo Adventures and the American tradition and Mark Twain and sort of Southern fabulists and sort of making things up, Big Rock Candy Mountain shit. I don't know. Do we have time for any of that? I think it's fairly self-evident in the film. It's really good. They steal a pie off a windowsill at one point. Man, it's all
they do.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know.
Why is this movie called Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? Why is this? It's just a reference to Preston Sturges. Is that it?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a movie about the Great Depression and a bunch of hobos.
They love Sullivan's Travels, and that is a good companion piece to this one. It's a good, also just companion piece for the Coen Brothers filmography generally, because you kind of see like, oh yeah, they like this vibe. This is why they keep returning to this for their goofier stuff. This rat-a-tat dialogue and these types of sort of contentious male-female relationships with the snappy back and forth. Yeah,
I mean they're gonna try the explicit screwball comedy pretty soon here with Intolerable Cruelty. So we'll be talking about that pretty soon. I believe Man Who Wasn't There is first, but that's the immediate future. I do got to say though, this 1, 2, 3 run of Fargo, Oh Brother Where Art Thou, and
Lebowski.
Fargo, Lebowski, Oh Brother Where Art Thou. That's about as good as it gets for a director. Like,
yeah, these. I mean,
that's
3
nuts.
bona fide classics. I mean, it's the like consummate indie movie critic darling. Immediately canonized low budget classic, and then into the sort of ultimate cult movie.
Yeah,
slow burn building, but audience anointed classic. And then this, which has this crossover musical aspect where it's winning Grammys in addition to everything else, and but 3 different like forms of home run. It's like one over the left field wall, one over the right field wall, and one over the center somehow.
Crazy. I mean, these are 3 of the more important films of my life. They just like it was a 1, 2, 3 right after another at the end of the 90s for the Coens, and yeah, all 3 of these are going to be high up on my list at the end. I mean, the only problem is there's so much competition. These ones are,
you got to beat that competition.
Yeah, got to beat that competition. But these are right in the thick of it, man, for some of my favorite movies ever. And wow, it was great to revisit them all. They remain excellent. What can you say?
Yeah, I mean, I said it on this one. This might be my favorite of them all we've done so far. Just
interesting. I mean,
I said earlier, there's just no movie that is better to look at for me, and there's no movie that's better to listen to. And so, that's all the full Venn diagram of cinema.
Yeah. Well, the next 3 are not as successful, but
it should be a come down for. But we'll see you next week for that one.
Yeah, man. All right.
Speculating about a hypothesis. I know I don't know how.
Uncertainty. That is appropriate for matters of this world.
There. We're in a tight spot.